The urban renewal of Stanton occurred in the late 50s, early 60s period of time. Just as I was coming on the police department, which was been in 1964. They, according to the official report, it was to remove a blighted area in the city. And I'm more of a person who lived in the county. And I guess I think a lot about the history of the black farmers around here. Starting around 1900, there was probably somewhere around 10,000 acres owned by black farmers around here. One time, I'm told, and some research has been done on there, some 300 or more black-owned businesses over a period of the last 50 to 100 years in this area. One of them's the Jenkins Farm that was over on Old Greenville Road that had about 700-800 acres in it. The Wilsons over on, that belonged to my church, and he had about 500 acres, 600 acres there. The Smith Farm, they had, at different times, he bought and sold land too, but he actually had probably 600 to 700 acres. And those were just ones that I can pick out, right, that I personally knew. They were businesses, they were agribusiness. Mm-hmm. Right now, if we put them on the market and you talk about the value of them, you talk about multi-million-dollar operations, what would be today.
Well, my name is Nathaniel Perez. Starting, you said you want to start at Pump. I would start really back at the intersection of Churchfield Avenue, New Street, mm-hmm. and Augusta, because there you had the Evans Tourist Home, and behind that was the barber shop, mm-hmm. which the barber shop is still, the building is still there. And then somewhere in the early 40s, Cook built the snack shop, which is there where that parking area, a vacant area is now at the corner of Augusta and Point Street. Mm-hmm. In that particular block, there was a rooming house, and I'm trying to think if there was a bowling alley in there, and I think not a bowling alley, a pool hall in that block. I'm not really sure about that, but mm-hmm. I seem to recall that there was.
I know Dr. Waller fought against City Council to try to prevent this from happening, and just tell us your experience for that time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you, we had a lot of black business on Augusta Street, north and south Augusta Street. The Cook Snack Shop right on the corner of Point Street and Augusta Street. Of course, the building is tore down now.
Well, I worked there before I was married, and I worked for Mr. William Cook. He was the owner, and I was one of the waitresses, and we had a good business. The people across the street was a factory, a clothes factory, and we accommodated a lot of those people that worked there for lunch came over to us, and that helped his business a lot. And he constantly had an influx of people coming and going pretty much all day. And in the afternoon, it was mostly where we gathered, all of the people in the neighborhood and out from other parts of the town would come and sit there and join, and we'd drink sodas. We didn't have anything hard to drink. It was only ice cream, sodas, and sandwiches and that type of food. But it was a joy working there.
And what happened to all of the businesses?
Well, you see what happened. They
on the corner of Pump Street and Central Avenue, that's where Charlie Johnson had his restaurant. And that's where the firehouse is now. It used to be a factory there, a coat factory. Mm-hmm. So all that was torn down. and that all the black businesses and the houses was there. You had Jeff Bryant. It was on Central Avenue, right where Kroger's used to be, where the A&P at first time. Used to be there. And going north on Central Avenue, you had 3 houses that was torn down, owned by black. And Mr. Art, Mr. Williams, Mr. Shelton. All those houses was torn down.
What are some of the things you remember just interacting with some of the black business leaders and their businesses for you personally?
Really, when I got out of the service, mostly all of the black business that came in back in the 1800s, most of them have been gone. We have a lot of back there, then a lot of business. Yeah.
But did you go eat at the restaurants and stuff like that?
Black restaurants, yes.
Which ones did you eat at?
Johnson Restaurant, I think, I'm not going to say the best, but that's where we all went. And of course, when I was growing up, you know, a lot of the places I couldn't go, like down in the largest row at Taylor's Restaurant, I couldn't go there until I grew up. When I come out of the service, this is where I was going.
So when you went to Johnson's, what would you get? What was your favorite order?
A lot of sandwiches. He had some beautiful sandwiches, you know. Yeah.
What about the service? Was it good service?
Real good.
And what about Mr. Johnson? Did you interact with him at all?
You know, Mr. Johnson and I was in the same masonry together. And we was in the VFW together. And he was a very nice man. But he really didn't take any stuff. You come in there loud and noise and all that, he'll put you out. Yeah.
He just wanted people to respect his business?
Yes, he wants to respect his business.
What was the best sandwich in there?
Chicken salad sandwich, I like that really. And of course, Cook's Snack Shop on Johnson Street. Now that was the main thing for school kids.
What was the routine? What would you get from there?
They had some beautiful hot dogs. Mrs. Cook, I mean, she really fixed hot dogs and hamburgers and everything, and it was really great.
And who was the who was the customer base? Where did the customers come from?
Well, the customers were local, mostly local people. And like I said, the factory across the street were mostly all white people because we didn't have anybody of our color that worked in the factory there.
And where was it located?
Right across from Mount Zion Church on the corner of what's that, Pump Street and Augusta. That building's been torn down. It's a parking lot now, I think, for maybe Mount Zion people or whoever.
And what other black-owned businesses was around that area?
Well, there was right up the street, right past Augusta Street Church, was Bungarner's Restaurant. Of course, across the street was Dr. Waller's home. And I believe coming on back up the street, I think that's probably on New Street, was Evans Barber Shop. And I believe that his wife had a beautician parlor in there. I'm not sure. I think she did. Going on up past there, I'm not too familiar, I don't think. Coming on back down Augusta Street now, we did have Dr. Childs, had a dentist office on Frederick Street. That's going up Frederick Street. And then on down to Beverly Street was Dr. Marshall had an office upstairs. Dr. Waller had an office upstairs in one of the fronts of the stores. And if Shorts Cleaning and Alteration was down on the bottom floor. I'm not sure it was in the same building, but it was along there somewhere.
My name is Margaret Morgan.
Great. And how long have you lived in Stanton?
I am 98, so I moved in. We came to Stanton. I lived out on Churchfield. Well, I lived everywhere, but I've been here ever since 47.
Great. What about the restaurants?
Well, I'm getting the streets mixed up. Williams had a restaurant on Central Avenue.
Do you remember what you used to get there?
Pardon?
Do you remember what you used to get to eat there?
Oh, they had everything.
What was your favorite?
Well, at that particular time at our age, we didn't get to go to the restaurant to eat unless it was a special occasion.
So say it's Easter or something like that.
Yeah.
What would you get?
Well, you know what, we all get the same old chicken that you had at home.
And you said there were two doctors, correct?
Dr. Marshall and Dr. Waller,
Was one of those your doctor?
both of them,
So can you kind of tell me about your experiences with them? Where were they?
on East Beverly Street.
And so
Dr. Waller was a family physician, and Dr. Marshall was a dentist.
And what were your interactions with those two like?
Wonderful with Dr. Waller.
What made Dr. Waller so good?
He was just a lovable person. He respected everybody, and he just was a wonderful person. If you didn't have anything, well, he seen that you got it, and he didn't question you, worry about paying him, and if you had to come to your house, he'd come to your house for house visits. And,
Did he ever have to come here?
oh yeah.
Can you give me an example, like how it worked? So say you would just call him?
Yeah, you took a telephone and said you were sick, and he would come, bring his little medicine box.
That's awesome.
There were several black businesses that were directly affected. One of them I can recall was, I believe was family name was Johnson. They had a restaurant. Actually in the area where the current fire department is located. They right on the corner there, Pump, I believe it is, and Central Avenue. And that was one that was demolished and torn down as a direct result of that. A number of homes when I was taken out, remember Dr. Waller was one of them who had a home, quote, in the blighted area that was torn down, and he ended up moving a little further north on Augusta Street there. It had a demoralizing effect, I think, on some blacks, and like any place else, when you do that, a lot of the businesses just didn't come back. They either were working basically on a marginal basis, or they just couldn't afford to re-establish themselves and couldn't find a place to re-establish themselves.
And then there used to be a grocery store right there, other side of Dr. Waller's going north on Augusta Street. And beyond that store, there was 4 houses that black owned. And they took all of that, every bit of it.
And so everything got torn down, but nothing was built?
Nope.
I asked you, like, what happened to the black businesses in Stanton? How did it go from, like, a thriving place for black entrepreneurs and business people to, like, where we're having a hard time just counting, like, who is running the business here? How did we go from here to there?
Well, after all of that was torn down, the black business didn't have anywhere else to go. So they just had to quit doing what they had to do.
Can you explain that? What do you mean? They just couldn't find somewhere else to relocate their businesses?
Yeah.
Why was that a problem?
They didn't have any land, really, to build on around here in Stanton. As far as other buildings concerned, see, all they were occupied. No one else could get into it.
And so then, like, what happened to the community when all the business leaders shut down?
It just didn't have anywhere to go.
Like, okay, so there were all these insurance agents and banking people and restaurateurs, and all of a sudden now they're gone. Now what happens?
Well, most of those went to private homes. They had grocery stores in the houses. They had one on Baptist Street. And those insurance agents, they had the one on Caroline Street.
So you could still get the services you needed. We just didn't have a location.
Yeah.
For them?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes some of them had to come from Richmond, insurance agents, to collect everything from the people.
So did you have a shop downtown?
I had a shop in my basement.
Okay.
Edith White and them had a shop in the basement. Dr. Charles opened a beauty shop down there, and Edith White and Barbara Jackson rented it. And my mom told me that the money I was paying Dr. Charles, I could fix my own in my own house. So I fixed my shop in my basement.
Was it successful?
Sure.
So you ran a business?
Yes, still downstairs. Still got the beauty shop and everything's still downstairs, just like it was.
Really?
Yes. I'm not a practicing beautician, but it's still set up.
So tell us about your business. Tell me all about it. I'd like to know anything you remember about it.
Well, it was hard work and poor pay.
Can you explain that?
Well, we had to charge according to the salary that the maids and things made. They didn't make no money working for a private family, so you couldn't charge them money like the people that was working in the factory. So you started out 25 cents, then you went to 50, then you went to 75, and when I closed, we were only getting $4.25.
Well, my husband came out of the service, and then he went to school, went to St. Paul University in Lawrenceville. He took up tailoring. When he came back, he couldn't get a job sewing anywhere for anybody. So we opened up a shop in our own home on Richardson Street, and we would take in different customers, not a lot. People would come in, and he altered clothes and did any kind of work he could for them. But
Heard
then,
he was really good.
pardon me?
Heard he was really good.
Yes, it was good. And then I do remember one time a lady came to our house when we were living on B Street. We had our shop, and she came in and she saw that who he was, and he was supposed to be altering her dress. And she said she didn't want him to do it. And I thought, well, he's the tailor. I'm not the tailor. She said she wanted me to do it. I said, I'm not the tailor. If you want to be your dress to fit you, you're going to have him to measure you. I'm right here, so you just have to be measured. And so she consented. But we ran into some of that.
Why didn't she want him to do it? Why didn't she want him to do it?
Because he was a black man. He was a black man, and she didn't want him to do it. Didn't want her to touch him, I suppose. We knew that. Then, of course, we had another one that came to our shop, and she wanted to try on some pants. She bought her pants to be shortened, and she came in, so she was ready to take off her pants, her dress, and I thought, wait a minute. You got to put something underneath of that. You're not going to take that dress off in front of my husband. You're going to put something under that. So I went upstairs and got her a slip. And she put that slip on, and then she put that dress back on. It was to hem the dress, I believe, not to alter the pants. But we ran into those little incidents like that. That's why mostly he wanted me always to be there. to make sure there was nothing, couldn't nobody say anything went wrong.
My name is Kenneth Venable. Born and raised here in Stanton back in 1947. Raised and went to the black schools here at that time. And one thing that I always thought about when people ask me about here, dealing with busing, funny thing about it, the buses were used here to bring the white students in from Augusta County because it wasn't a high school in Augusta County. So the buses had to bring in the white students and the black students. And a lot of people forgot about that. And I said, no, I said, we all walked. So everybody always thought busing was for them. And I said, the problem came is that white kids were bused in from Augusta County, and that's where all the problems came from. We got along with the white kids here, but was the ones from Augusta County that would call the N-word, spit on you, throw piss off the buses, throw rotten eggs off the buses. And, you know, it soon stopped once they got their own high schools. And, but everything around Stanton, you worked together, but also as blacks, you knew where to go and where not to go. Frankly, you knew which streets to be on and which streets not to be on. Give example, if you were coming home from over on Sunnyside and cut through a white street, by the time I got home, my mom and dad said, where were you at? Because white folk would get on the phone and say, hey, why is your son over in this neighborhood? Because we always figured you're up to something. The only thing we were doing is taking a shortcut.
Like coming down Augusta Street, I remember my husband and I walking down East Beverly Street going to the Strand Theater. And there was a little restaurant there where you could pick up hot dogs or something similar. And he was stopping there to get something to eat as we were going down the street. And a lot of time, the young men, that was a lot of them, was sitting on the outside, and they always made cracks at us. I don't know because of our color or exactly what, but they did make little ornery cracks at us. But we kept going, went on down the street to the theater, and come back and go home. But really comments made to us. I don't know, we knew where people didn't want us, so we didn't go. But and if you did, we had comments to some say to you. We didn't always just sit back and let you just talk to us any kind of way. You had to prove that you were just as good as you are, just as good as you are. And that's what our determination has been pretty much all of our life. We're just as good as you. We can do the same thing you can do. And that's what we trained our children to do.
What do you think about what your children have been able to accomplish?
I'm very proud of them, very proud, because they had to go through many obstacles, many challenges to keep themselves. And we always told them, like the Bible tells, turn the other cheek. But my husband, he was one that said, no, you don't have to always turn that other cheek. And of course, you know, one of my sons didn't always turn that other cheek.
Your kids helped to integrate Stanton City Schools.
Yes, they did. Yes.
What was that process like for you?
My youngest daughter, she was in the 2nd grade. And when she went to school, one of her teachers, she got sick one day and threw up on the floor. She was sick to her stomach, and her teacher told her to clean it up. When she came home and told us, my husband was working for the school system. He went down right away and told the superintendent what had happened. And we said, he worked in the school. He knew if a child got sick, you had sawdust that you placed over that until you were able to get it up. You did not have any of your students picking that stuff up or cleaning it up. That really did infuriate us. We were really ready. But we had to calm ourselves down, and he took care of it. The superintendent took care of it. And then, of course, we had many incidents, and Paige had incidents in junior high. People spitting on his bellman when he went to a football game. And he had to sit there and take it. Well, you know, when he came back home, well, I might say my husband had a fiery temper. because he had gone through too much hurt and too much disappointment, too much rejection. So didn't take him long to go and take care of that little matter. He went to the superintendent again, and all of them were very, very kind because they knew what was doing was wrong. The students were wrong. But we did encounter those kind of incidents, but not so many. After a while, they got better. And one of Page's best friends was a Jewish boy who met him on the doorsteps when he went to that school by himself. And that young man moved on the street where Page was living. They became the best of friends. So we know there are some really, really good people that we have to trust and have helped us along the way. But you know, there's always those, like today, that are trying so hard to suppress us. But you know, we're not going to stand but for so much. We're going to stand up and fight for our rights. If it comes to that, we will do what we have to do. Always with dignity, with respect for each other.
And I keep thinking, like you said, the connection from our teachers with the students, and then to drive through our communities and know that our buildings became, in the mind of the citizens of Stanton, worthless. And all the other buildings, even with integration, continued to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Jefferson turned out to be our local library.
Yeah.
How do you think that played into the mental mix of our people?
I think it really played a very deep part. And one thing that I always looked at, and when you go back and look at it, and I try to tell people, I said, when the black schools closed, well, the thing about it, as far as integration, because Stanton didn't want to integrate because NAACP had to take them to court to force them to go on and do it. But I told them, I said, now this is when the scheme came in, is that, and a lot of people forgot this, and I said, when they had to integrate and close Booker T in '66, okay, the thing about it, and that all the teachers, black teachers, had moved them into the white schools. But if you go back and look at '66 and just think how many black teachers we had then, and see, Stanton had to take them because, see, the establishment didn't want, they didn't want integration anyway. So what they did is that since they lost that lawsuit in NAACP, and that was Reverend Powell and all of them did that, fine, we'll close all the black schools. But people forgot that Booker T in Stanton was the most sound-built school of all of them. And then when you look at it, and then also people forgot that Central Augusta was a brand new high school. But see, they closed it all, forced you to go to the white schools. They had to take all the teachers. But then when you look at it, and you go back and look at the numbers of all the black teachers, because a lot of our teachers were mature teachers. They weren't rookies. So as they retired, they didn't replace them. It just went down, 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 down. And the thing about it, some of our teachers, even then, even Mr. Hamilton and all, were qualified to even be a principal in a white school. But they would let us be assistant principal, and that was the ceiling. You know, and I looked at it, I said, no, if you go back and look at Mrs. Ware, Ms. Waller and all, look at their degrees and all that they had. I said, no. And I said, people forgot that even Booker T was a fully accredited high school, even back then. So the thing about it, I think it affected black students when they made that move because they didn't want to go anyway. And I used to talk to my brother Dennis, him and Louise and Charles Kearney, first three to graduate from Robert E. Lee, and he don't want to talk about it today. But he said what he went through just that 1 year, you know, and he said the N-word rang in his ears every day, every day. But the thing about it is that his upbringing taught him that you got to deal with this, and they took it. But the thing, I think it took a lot out of our kids and also young parents coming up, is that we didn't have that connection. Kids didn't have that connection. And it's still felt today. Because I look at it today, and since I'm on the school board, I see it every day. It's just our kids are walking around with their heads down. They don't have enough connection to that. So in some essence, on when education changed, I said, no, we lost a lot. I said, we lost a lot on that. Though the kids today have all the technology and all that we wish we had when we grew up, but I think they lost that social.
So, Mr. Beck, from what I see and what I've experienced, there's an apathy, I'll say, in the black community, or a fear in opening a business or trying to operate a business. And I'm asking you to, I guess, make an assumption or just your opinion. Do you feel that's here now because of the loss of the business from that period of time?
Yeah, it is.
My years of working here, there was a very limited number of black businesses. In fact, there was almost none for all practical purposes. You still got a couple that are holding on. It is very difficult for black organizations to continue to operate because they don't have that cohesiveness that black business will bring to a community. And right now we're down to, well, like I said, it's no longer a black funeral home here in Staten. It's one in Waynesboro. I guess you can say that they both, they service Staten and Augusta and Waynesboro area, Jones McCutcheon Funeral Home. And after that, as far as small businesses are a lifeline for your community. Morgan's down on Richmond Road, where Martin's and Martin's is located there. That was all part of the Morgan, I can call it, as you can call it, recycling. They were in there from time I can recall. If you wanted to use part for your car, that's where you went and got it. And it was, and they were 7-day Adventists, but quite frankly, a lot of people didn't realize they were black. A lot of people thought they were white. Mm-hmm. They were very fair-skinned people. But he operated that business down there from the time I can remember. So back in I know during World War II, up until he closed it down when he died. And it's gone. So there was a number of businesses that were very profitable and very for the community, but they're not there any longer. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of the problems that we face as a community, as a black community, is economics. Because if you don't have some input into the business side of the economics of it, you can't win. You are losing. And I guess that's the reason why I'm not the best economics person, but based on, that's why I think it's so important that we maintain the family farms. Because I look at a lot of the businesses, if you look at businesses that are currently operating in Staten, mm-hmm. I can go back to them and trace those businesses back to a farm origin. Mm-hmm. That's where the money was, that's where they found the money to finance the business, was mm-hmm. off the farms. And the land, and the thing that we need to recognize is that the land, as individuals, as a commodity, you leverage that to do something else. You hang on to the land, but you leverage it. Mm-hmm. And the money you get out of born to start a business, but you still get your principal. You don't get rid of that. Right. And too many of the black people I know let that go. And now that trying to figure how to get money to build something. Well, it's impossible if all you got is an automobile. Nobody loans you a car money on an automobile because the depreciation is too fast. You would need something that don't depreciate. And one thing that it never depreciates, I've never seen it depreciate, is land. And that's why it's so important.
Yeah.